Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
All right, guys, we are happy to have with us tonight a group of filmmakers and actors involved in two screeners that we recently got that we just absolutely loved. The third Saturday in October, parts 1 and 5, but not necessarily in that order, as we will soon find out. We had director JAY BURLESON, stars Kansas Bowling, and star Darius Willis with us tonight. So thank you guys so much for coming on the Civil Gore podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, man. Thanks for having us. Yes.
Yeah, so as I was telling these guys right before we hit the record button, when I saw these screeners sent over and I read a little bit about them, it was like I instantly knew I was going to love these movies because they are targeted for people like me who grew up with the VHS era where you went into the store and your mom might let you pick out a horror movie if you were lucky, like my parents did. And she didn't really care what I watched, which was great for a budding horror fan. I wasn't restricted from renting anything. But as you know, sometimes you would go in and parts 1 and 2 and 3 would be checked out, and all you had was part 4. You had to start somewhere, so you'd grab that one off the shelf. So Jay, I want to hear about the how you came up with this concept of doing not just one but 2 films, kind of in this retro style.
Yeah, so it had always been a goal of mine for many years to make my own retro slasher franchise because I grew up loving, the big 3, Halloween, Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. And I also went to the video store with my mom, and she let me see a bunch of horror movies that I shouldn't have seen when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. But that's what I grew up on, and college football was already also really big in the South. So I'm really a child of slasher movies and college football. So I had this idea in mind for years, and we were actually putting together a much bigger film that was like a art house slasher that ultimately we couldn't get off the ground, but we had a team in place and we had a target date of fall 2019. We're making a movie. And since I had these ideas kind of on the back burner, it seemed like the right pivot to dig into something that we could do that would lend itself to the absurdity of the situation that we found ourselves in, because we were putting it together pretty quickly and we didn't know what was going to happen, like how this was going to go, if we were even going to actually be able to make a movie or not. So I wanted to lean into something that any of the warts that would develop across the project would be part of the charm. I'm a big Halloween 4 and 5 fan, so it just felt right to start with part 5. And we got through that, had a lot of good time. And then we were fortunate enough to have some money about a year later, and we had the opportunity to make another movie. So we decided we would double down on this concept and go back and make part 1. And then the double feature nature of it really was born out of just having 2 films in post at the same time and thinking about like, what's an interesting way to roll these out to the public.
So that was one thing I was going to ask you about, because the suggested viewing order for these films is to watch part 5 first and then go back and watch part 1. Was there any worries that there'd be some confusion on the part of people watching these, or did you just figure that the films that these are targeted for, people would just get it like me? I like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense to me to watch.
I do understand that it is confusing and there is some concern about that aspect of it. But I also did think that it made sense to us. And we felt that, once people read about it or however they found out about it, that they would get it and understand what we were trying to do. And, when we rolled it out we premiered at Chattanooga Film Festival last June, in that order, we were 5 first. And that really, spearheaded that movement of just rolling them out that way and getting a response. And people instantly did get it. So we just built momentum off of that. And we're really happy with how that's played out.
It's not that confusing.
I didn't find it confusing. I actually I like that the films have very different feels to them. So and I watch these back to back, as you should, and you definitely get the feeling that part 5 has that feel of a later sequel where they just dispense with backstory. Everybody already knows everything. The characters are kind of two-dimensional a little bit, but it's okay because he's just there to show up and kill people. Whereas the first film, you really get the idea that this is trying to go back and recreate kind of a classic start to a horror franchise. So I thought that was really cool. This next one is for our actors. So Kansas, you played Maggie in part 5. And Darius, you played Ricky Dean Logan in part 1. So you guys kind of, which is great that you both are on here because you both kind of represent each film. So I'll start with you, Kansas. Can you tell us a little bit about the Maggie character and kind of what some of your influences there were?
Maggie is I don't know, she's a little rebel girl with pink hair in Alabama in the 90s. wearing a Dinosaur Jr. shirt. And Jay's cracking up. I can't honestly say I can't honestly pick a specific character that influenced it, but you know, I just wanted to be a little I just feel like it's very the 90s to be like kind of a little catty. Like too cool. Too cool for Athens, Alabama.
Yeah.
But yeah. But she's also a very good babysitter to Poppy. So, she might act like a brat, but she's not.
Did you watch any horror movies to kind of get into the mindset of, or are you like a horror movie fan at all before this, or is this?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the genre, so.
Very nice. And Darius, I know you had an influence because this character has Dr. Loomis written all over it.
No way.
Come on, man. You think Dr. Loomis? You know what? Ricky Dean Logan. When I read the script and kind of talking to Jay and when the audition process was going on and the direction he gave, I thought about Dr. Loomis because of Halloween. I had that feel, but as I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at Dr. Loomis and I'm saying to myself, Jay, Dr. Loomis is white. How you think I'm going to pull that off? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, come on, man. But then I thought about it for a minute. What a twist to flip it. Here's Ricky Dean Logan. So now here's this black guy in the 70s, you know what I'm saying? And I'm affected by this guy who has killed a family member, you know what I'm saying? And it's my daughter. And so how would I take that rage and that anger? And now I want him. And then this guy, I want him to get what he's supposed to get, but to find out this guy, is not dead. You know what I'm saying? Now my anger has went to 10. And now I looked at, I had to go back and look at Halloween, even though I grew up in the Michael Myers, the Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger and all of that. And I think it was a Friday the 13th where they were trying to, one of the characters on there, I think they were trying to get Jason. It might have been Freddy versus Jason or something like that. One of the guys was just bent on trying to, we're going to get him. And he had these chains and all this stuff. So I kind of looked at that and then I'm like, okay, now let me develop Ricky Dean. What can I make memorable about Ricky Dean? And I'm like, okay, he's a black man that's in Alabama trying to get this killer. And so how you going to be received? So it's like, I got to be on my P's and Q's because I'm in Alabama to being a black man. And then I'm trying to chase this killer. So all of that went into Ricky Dean. And I just go through these rays of emotions as Ricky Dean goes throughout this movie. And I love it because Jay does that writing, man. I'm talking about those comedic moments. It was really funny. When I think about it after I see the movie, I'm like, man, that really worked. But when I read it, I was like, JR, you lost your mind, but it did, man. And I loved it from beginning to end, what Jay did with Ricky Dean Logan. And I just tried to be the best Ricky Dean Logan I could be and not be Dr. Loomis.
Well, I was laughing because there's so many characters in these movies that feel familiar. If you've grew up watching Halloween and oh my gosh, I gotta find the character's name that played the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, Lester.
I mean, that has Franklin from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like a spot on impersonation. And I was like, and what's funny,
for sure.
Brian and I, like, Franklin's one of our favorite characters of all time. Like we do Franklin impersonations all the time on the show. I mean, that's just one of our like beloved characters. So when I saw that, I was just literally laughing out loud when I saw him doing that. And then PJ, the little girl, she reminded me a lot of like Jamie from Halloween, or even Lindsay from the original Halloween, that kind of role. So it was nice to see these new characters, but they're kind of familiar if you kind of grew up with these. And speaking of Darius, you were talking about the racial component here. One thing I really loved about these movies is they feel like they were from the 70s or from the early 80s, but there's a big change in terms of the diversity of the cast. A black villain, slasher villain, which is incredible. I mean, the only one we've seen is like Candyman. I was trying to think of another one.
You're right.
And I thought that was just incredible. And then also, I don't know if this isn't intentional as well, Jay, but I kind of felt like the sexual aspect that's so hyped in the 80s was not as prevalent. So I mean, it seemed like it was a lot more.
They just take naps instead.
Yeah. But
and make cat noises.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that these movies did not try to recreate maybe some of the problematic things from the early 80s and kind of brought them up to date without sacrificing the retro feel of them. Can you talk a little bit about how that went into your thought process when you were writing?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, we did lean into some of that problematic stuff with a character like Peter, played by Taylor Smith in Part 5. He's just a complete asshole, But it was very important in the writing process to make sure that he was going to get what was coming to him and to really lean into playing that up so that, I think there may be an expectation, or hopefully there's an expectation when you watch the movie that when it gets to his death scene that he's like out of the movie, but he's going to be continuously tortured to the bitter end. So that was definitely on my mind. And as far as the makeup of the cast, we did talk about making sure we were inclusive in our casting, but it also just kind of came naturally out of growing up in Alabama. I mean, the cast looked like Alabama. So it was, it really is that simple.
Yeah, I like the one scene, Darius, and I've seen it mentioned in some reviews where you're in the car talking about when you have the confrontation with the police officer. I thought that was a fantastic scene, and with Vicki Newton.
Oh man,
I'll never forget the name Vicki Newton after watching that movie. And once you guys see it, you'll realize that Vicki Newton will be drilled into your brain.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, that car scene was man, it was awesome, but I mean it was very creative, and it was what we're dealing with the budget wise, and we're getting this car scene shot, and Jay saying, okay, we're gonna do this over again, let's try it this way. So the best thing was during the car scene was KJ looking at me and say, hey, wherever you go, I'm gonna go with you, so I'm just following you. And Jay giving us direction. He wanted to be more like a conversational piece. And he kind of was more, Jay was allowing us to create at the same time. And if it was too much, he would pull us back. If it wasn't enough, he'll tell us to give him more. And, I like when he would say more is best, because if I'm giving him more, then he's able to pull me back. So, but I think it just worked. The chemistry in the car and just riding. I didn't want it to feel like we were just, okay, we're just going to ride. I wanted the people to see the journey to us and see some of the hurt and some of the emotions that we might give riding in the car. So I thought it was fun, but you're talking about the gas station scene, right?
Yeah, the gas station scene.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun within itself. And I thought we all played off each other really well with that gas station scene. I thought the whole thing at first, like I told Jay, here's this scene where there's like some racial tension there. And I'm like in the middle of a horror flick. But in reality, when you look at it, I was like, it's real, something that would be happening in the 70s that could happen or early 80s. So in Alabama. So I thought it worked well, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. A few people who've seen the movie like that car scene.
Yeah. I loved all that. So did you guys, we always like to ask this because you never know what's going to come out of these questions when I ask if there were any funny moments on set or any difficulty, any challenges. I mean, this is I'll open up the floor to anybody that wants to answer this because I always get
I'll start.
It was boring, nothing happened, or we get some of the wildest stories. So I always like
not on this set.
We got two different movies with two really different dynamics. I mean, part 5, I remember being really light and more fun and games than part 1. Part 1 felt like a job for sure. There were just so many things going against us. We were shooting during COVID as well, which added this other component to it that none of us had ever dealt with before. And there was high anxiety just from the COVID aspect. But I had a great time on both of the shows, even when it was not fun. And Darius, I know me and you have plenty of memories of being on set, just thinking, what the hell is going on today? Like, how are we going to do this? But the one great thing about both casts and crews, hands down, everybody just kind of came together, and there was a really nice bond across both sets. So when things did go wrong, we just bounced back and kept going. I mean, they're both kind of like blurs. You go shoot it, and you're in it, you're in the thick of it, and you just kind of have to figure out a way to ride it out to get to the end.
Jay is giving you like the dumbed down version of it. Man,
I want to hear the gory details.
Hey, let me tell you something. Real talk. I think one of the hardest nights, and Jay will remember this, we were in the warehouse shooting
the cotton gin.
The electrocution scene. And it was the coldest night on record for Alabama, and because that winter was treacherous. And like he said, it was during the pandemic. So right now, I was tripping because once we got the shooting, I'm thinking like, man, I'm like 20 pounds more heavier than I was because of the pandemic, because you wasn't doing nothing. And then all of a sudden now we're going to shoot a horror flick. So we're in the middle of this, and man, let me tell you, it was so cold. I mean, my God, it was like, and Jay wanted us to act. I'm like, are you serious right now? He's like, come on, man, I need you to give it. I know it's cold. Serious? You know it's cold? You really know it's cold? I'm talking about, man, it was to the point one time, I know Jay seen it in my face. I just wanted to say, here, take the mic, take this, I'm out. It's cold, man. I'm serious. And it was like we were shooting late at night a couple of times, and we're trying to. We're shooting late at night, and I'm talking, we're not getting home until the sun comes up.
Oh, yeah. When Darius and I saw the sun come up together many times.
Yeah, I remember that night we filmed the final scene with me and Poppy and the knives and all that. I remember it was 13 degrees, and you wouldn't let me put a jacket on because it would ruin the blood.
Oh man!
But those type of nights, man. Let me tell you, it was crazy. But once you see the final his final cut, when you see the movie, it's so rewarding, but then you laugh when you see certain parts. You like, man, I remember we were like this, or this was going on. And what Kansas just said, 13 degrees, I wish that seemed like summer from what we were in.
No, that one was really rough. I mean, everybody was bundled up with like 4 or 5 blankets in between every
Yes.
take.
Jay, when I think of funny stories from the shoot, there's one that immediately comes to mind, but I don't know if you want me saying.
I have no idea what you're about to say. So.
It has to do with Frank and a neighbor.
Oh, yeah. You talking about when he went to get the... Oh, no. You're talking about the gun.
Yeah. Can I say or no?
I mean, somebody did pull a gun on our producer.
Yeah, someone pulled like a drunk neighbor came to when we were shooting, and I don't know, he thought we were like breaking in or something, and he pulled a gun on Frank.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know till the next day, because supposedly everyone was like, don't tell Kansas.
I wasn't even there. Like I went to get something from my apartment, and I got a phone call from Ian who told me the whole thing. But yeah, luckily it all worked out.
Yeah, everyone was acting really weird that night. I was like, is something wrong? I was like, no, nothing's wrong. Everything's great.
Man, yeah. But you know what? Like I said, it's rewarding to see the finished product, man. But
it certainly is.
I think we might have had a couple of blooper reels. I think Jay got some blooper reels. He just ain't showed us. Yeah.
So how's the reception been to this? I mean, you guys have had it. Have you guys had it at a bunch of film festivals? I know you mentioned one that you had.
Yeah. We're through the festival circuit now. We were just at Panic Fest, and that capped off our festival run as far as I know. But we did a lot of virtual fests. We were virtual at Chattanooga, Popcorn Frights, Fantastic Fest, Burn Ends. And yeah, like it's been really great to get that immediate reaction through social media and Letterboxd. And I'd never done a virtual fest before, but I'm a big fan of them now, just going through this process and seeing, you know, how many people responded right away and seemed to get what we were doing. So we've been very encouraged by the response so far.
Very nice. Is there any chance of part 2 or part 3 or part 4 or part 6? Because I'll take all of them. Or is this? Are we ready to just move on?
No, I mean, these are so personal to me. As you know, I grew up with the slasher movies when I was a kid. So if there was an opportunity to make more of them, yeah, I have a pretty good idea of what that would look like. So I think at this point, it's just based on the response, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I would do more of them for sure. And I mean, I don't know. Darius knows I got ideas for him coming back. Kansas knows that I have ideas for her coming back. So yeah, we have some ideas.
Oh man, that would be incredible. Yeah, I can see this kind of getting a little bit of a cult following, because it just really does a great job of capturing the feel of those slashers, and whilst, you know, maintaining its own identity, right? So
well, thank you.
Like I said, Brian, thanks, I really enjoyed these. I watched them first and immediately told Brian, I was like, you don't sleep on these. You gotta check these out. And he did, of course.
Yeah.
Before we go, I do want to give you guys a chance to tell our listeners where they can stream these or see these for themselves.
Yeah, so on May 5th, you can get them pretty much anywhere digitally for rentals, you know, Amazon, iTunes, Vudu, Xbox, things of that nature. And we're doing a limited theatrical. You can find out more about those dates at our website, the third Saturday in October.com. We're still booking those out. It looks like it's probably going to be kind of throughout the summer. We're going to book those. So yeah, that's where you can start. And our website also has some backstory on what some of those missing sequels might look like.
Oh, great. I got to go check that out. Yeah. Sounds amazing. Well, guys, we're going to wrap it up here since we're coming up on time, but I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. And Brian and I love supporting indie film. We particularly love promoting films that we enjoyed as much as these two And we wish you guys all the best when this is released to the general public. I think people are going to really love it. So again, Darius, Jay, and Kansas, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, man.
Yes, anytime. And guys, if you make any of those sequels, got to open the door. Come back and tell us about it.
For
Right.
sure.
Okay, man.